It worked. It worked this time. The position is assumed. All right. Should I have centered? Okay. We're good. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing pretty good. Happy hump day. Hope everybody's feeling all right this week. Thank you for joining. Just a reminder for those of you who are joining, or this might be your first class, there's going to be two terms that you're going to hear me use quite often. It's a hollow and arch position. Just a quick reference, that hollow cue is just trying to get you to posteriorly tilt your pelvis by squeezing your glutes, engaging the abdomen by pulling that sternum down, that pelvis up towards your sternum, and you should feel that fat kind of round out a little bit there. That'd be what you would consider to be a full hollow position. And in an arch position, you're going to be doing the exact opposite. So you're going to let the pelvis anteriorly tilt. You feel that arch, that inward concave curve on the lower back, and the shoulders should roll back and down. The chest is basically going to come out. What we're going to do during this class is kind of go through both those positions, and ideally we're achieving a nice balance. So we're going to do this, start seating here. So we're going to have ourselves move to the front of our chair. Our feet are going to be shoulder width apart. Our knees are going to be just on top of the heels. Hands are on top of our knees. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a little bit of breathing here. So when I think about breathing, when I think about inhaling passively, just kind of letting the rib cage expand, and then this is a voluntary exhale where you're pulling the ribs down, contracting the abdomen. And again, you just relax and let the lungs expand as you inhale, pushing the air out during the exhale, drawing the rib cage down. Continue to breathe like that. Then trying to think that it's an active exhalation. So when I'm exhaling, I'm pulling the ribs down, squeezing the stomach muscles. I'm kind of pushing that air out. Inhaling happens almost involuntarily. Just pushing that exhale out. Now what I want us to do is I want us to do one more time, and on this last exhale, you're going to lock in all those muscles coming down. So exhale. You're going to lock those muscles down, but you're going to continue to allow the diaphragm to relax and contract. So we're locking everything in here. If you're drawing those rib cage down right here, you should feel 360 degrees of that core all contracting here. What you're feeling here is you're contracting that transverse abdominal muscle, those obliques, the rectus abdominis, and those lower back extensors. So this is your body's natural weight belt. This is what you want to do when you're picking up objects off the floor or whenever you're bearing weight. So if you're carrying something, things like that. Now, what's hard to do sometimes is maintaining your breath while you're holding the contraction, continuing to breathe. So even right now as I'm sitting here, I'm still holding this. I'm not letting go. You almost kind of want to give it like this second nature effort. So there's a constant effort there, but it's not an overwhelming amount of effort that it requires your full amount of attention. So that way you can check here and there that you're still breathing. This is what's going to add to a nice neutral spine. Sure, think about like drawing those rib cage down, locking all of this in right here. So if you want, just to kind of help emphasize this, go ahead and place your fingers on your lower ribs, just above the floating ribs here. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw the fingers down the side of your stomach, and think about as your fingers draw down, draw the rib cage down by contracting those muscles. Draw down. You should feel the front, the sides, and the lower back muscles kind of contracting as well. And just lock in and hold that in. Go ahead and bring your hands back to the front of your knees and continue to breathe here. So this is not what you would call a hollow position. This is a nice neutral spine. 360 degrees are activated, and you're basically generating pressure in your abdominal cavity. Now you could do that, kind of like I said, second secondhand effort-wise, pick up objects and things like that. Now, if something was really heavy, you'd want to brace a little bit harder and increase that pressure in your abdominal cavity. That's what's there to help protect that lower back. All right, now we're going to go into a little hollow. So what I want us to do is I want us to contract our glutes even while we're seated. And now we're going to pull that sternum down. Continue to breathe. So now that we're contracting the front abdominal muscles a lot more than the sides and the lower back, kind of give ourselves a nice neutral spine. We're going to push through the palms of our hands on top of our knees. That's going to draw the shoulder blades back and down. The chest might lift a little, but not a lot. And now all of a sudden that spine is going to be in a nice neutral position here, just like we were before. You should still feel now, but even more so, still at 360 degrees of contraction all throughout here. What this does here is we're training ourselves as well to brace and increase that abdominal pressure. If you want to think about it this way, you should be pressurized like a Pepsi can. If you're pressurized like a Pepsi can, that's using your natural waist belt. You could step on a Pepsi can, and it's probably not going to break or anything like that. It's probably not going to get crushed. But if you opened up that Pepsi can and poured it out and then stepped on it, you'd crush it. So that's the big difference there, is you're building up pressure here to push out against anything that might be pushing in on you, such as carrying any external loads. So that's the concept here of that natural waist belt. So we're just staying in position, maintaining the contraction, making sure that you're breathing. All right, so now, while still pushing down through the hands, we're gonna tilt back here a little bit. The hands are gonna draw up, the thigh a little bit, and you should feel those stomach muscles working a little bit more. But we don't want to hollow out our back completely, so we're still pushing through the top of the thigh, using the palms of those hands. That's what's going to keep those shoulders drawn back and down. And we're just breathing here. When we are tilted back, you might feel like the breathing might get a little shallow. That's okay. Just still try to keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. Now we're going to rotate. Everyone's going to rotate towards the right. Right hand's going to draw up, left hand's going to draw down the leg. I'm still pushing down through the hands. I'm still slightly leaned back, not enough for my feet to come off, just enough to make sure that abdomen is really being challenged right here. We're going to switch over to the other side, rotating to the left. We're going to square back up and then come forward. Woo! Not too bad. All right, we're going to grab our PVC. So today we're going to do a couple of tests here just to kind of give us a good idea about what shoulder clearance that we have. And then ideally we're going to retest at the end of class, and hopefully what will happen is you'll notice somewhat of a slight difference, if not a bigger difference in the clearance within your shoulder here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to continue to activate these lats a little bit more and make sure the shoulder girdle is nice and warm. And we're going to push down. Now remember, we're going to start off with the hollow here. Hollow that spine just a little bit to contract the glutes, stomach muscles, and now with the PVC pipe digging that in, you'll notice that all of a sudden that spine, that whole spinal column lights up as you're pushing down. Your shoulders aren't shrugged, they're rolled back and down. You shouldn't feel like you're leaning forward or leaning back or anything like that. You should feel pretty straight up and down. Now we're going to draw the PVC back. We're not going to tilt back. We're just going to draw this guy back to mid-thigh. Now what should happen here is your elbows should bend. You're basically kind of like doing a little row. You're still having to push down and keep those shoulders back and down here. You should feel the muscles in between your shoulder blades working a little bit more. Now we're going to lean back away, let the arms extend. Now hopefully you should be able to lean back far enough to the point where your arms can get straight, but without feeling like your feet are going to come off the ground or anything. And then we're just going to push forward. Maintain your contraction, pull it back to mid-thigh, pushing down and leaning back away. You're still pushing down hard even when you lean back and come forward. One more time, draw it back maybe a little bit further than mid-thigh. Maybe a little bit closer to the hip. Then we're going to lean back. Make sure you're breathing, pushing forward, and relax. Go ahead and relax everything real quick. Woo! You feel that, right? All right, so we're going to do a few of these seated here, just to kind of minimize anything else influencing our mobility with our upper body. Let's go zip here. So we're going to bring our PVC to the top, to our clavicle, and we're just going to kind of gingerly alternate elbows coming forward just a little bit. Not really trying to push it too much, just trying to get a good idea of like, okay, PVC is in contact with the front of our clavicle, and we're just rotating the elbows forward just a little bit. What I want you to notice here is I'm not trying to hollow. I'm not trying to do anything with this here at all. I just want you to notice if there's anything that occurs with your back or your stomach or your sides when you rotate versus the left or the right. Do you feel like you're able to rotate one side easier than the other? Does it feel like your body has to compensate in any way or the other, more so for one side to move forward than the other? I know for me, when my right elbow comes forward, even though I normally cue this as my left side, my right elbow comes forward, I notice a little more compensation on my lower back, whereas when my left rotates forward, nothing moves at all. All right, go ahead and bring it down, shake it out a little bit. Ooh, kind of creeping up on me a little bit. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with the first test here. All right, so you don't have to start with it on your knees, but I do want you to bring the piece out in front just to make sure that your hands are relatively towards the end. They have to be outside shoulder width apart. That's the big important part here. You have to keep your arms locked out this entire time. So if your elbows start to bend, that's basically where you would mark how far you would go. What we're gonna do is, this is an overhand grip. We're gonna bring this guy up as high as you possibly can while being able to maintain your arms nice and straight. So if it helps, if you notice that your elbows are bending, at a certain point, think about reaching and then drop back further. Now, the best thing I tell you to do is relax your head as best you can. We don't really care so much about whether or not the PVC is over top of your head or not. It's just the direction of where you would stop is if it gets stacked on top of your shoulders. There's really no need to go any further than that. Take notice right now, is your back arching a whole lot in order to get this position? Is your chest up? Are you feeling any back pain? Is there any shoulder pain? Go ahead and come back down. Shake it out a little bit. All right, and here comes the really hard one. We're going to supinate our hands. So basically I'm telling you to turn your hands upside down. So that first test really showed us a lot about potentially some Latin flexibility, some shoulder mobility issues. This next one is going to show us specifically if mobility can be hindered from lat tightness. So that lat muscle, that's a big muscle that's on the side and part of our back right here, it's a powerful internal rotator. And when it gets tight, it can make it difficult for our arms to externally rotate. So we're supinated, so that means our arms are already externally rotated. So if those lats are really tight, these arms aren't going to go up very far. So you're going to do the exact same thing. Try to wrap all fingers around and maintain a good firm grip here, okay? Same thing. Keep those arms straight, and we're going to come up. You might notice that your arms want to internally rotate at a certain point. Take notice if you're starting to arch your back or anything like that, where that might be happening. And more importantly is relax your head. Basically, your head will kind of relax through a little bit. And just take a mental note of what you feel, where tension is. Are you able to maintain your pinky all the way around where it was when you first started, or the digits start to slip off? And we can come back down. Whew. Not so bad. That one's a hard one. That one's a little rough. Okay. So let's warm up the shoulder girdle here. We're going to retest those two at the very end of class and see if there's a big difference, okay? So we're going to come back up. PVC is on the front of the clavicle. We're maintaining contact the whole time. What we're going to do is we're going to bring both elbows forward. Now, before we start here, we're going to engage the abdomen, contract the glutes. We're going to make sure we're staying locked up, and we're basically doing this to prevent our back from arching. Because I want us to isolate the shoulder girdle here. Okay, so both elbows come forward. So we're still taking that overhand grip. Overhand. There you go. And relax the elbows. Push it forward again. So you're keeping those hands back to you as the elbows fly forward here. Now I would say if you had a weighted object, let's say like there was if you filled this guy with sand and you sealed off the ends, it might give you a little bit more feedback and you might be a little bit easier for you to kind of bring those elbows even more forward. But there's zero feedback with this relatively weightless object, so it can just be kind of awkward. Go ahead and relax, bring the bar down. Ooh. All right, so let's warm up some internal rotation, and then we're going to focus on the external, okay? So bar is back down on your knee, just on top of the lap here. Arms are extended, so just like we were talking about last class here, if you wanted to, if you're pushing down, right on here, just with your arms, you could apply the majority of your force, even if you kind of took the outside portion of your palm off of the PVC, and you're basically just kind of pushing with the top side portion of the palm of your hand. Basically, it's the same thing as saying like you're lifting your pinky side of the palm of your hand up a little bit. You can still push down. Basically, we're internally rotating the arm here. You're really turning that lat on. Now, if you put that pinky side down, and we put evenly through all parts of our palm of our hand, it's a much stronger position here. You're not going to really be emphasizing internal or external too much. But when we push out, go ahead and relax. Remember, we do that bend the bar movement here. The bar is extended. What we're going to do is we're basically trying to turn the thumbs up. So you're trying to bend that bar here. What happens is the PVC doesn't actually bend. Your arms externally rotate. It's a small movement, but I think we're going to do it 5 times. Going to relax, and then bend that bar. You're going to notice the elbows are going to rotate. Relax, bend the bar, relax, bend the bar, relax, bend that bar, relax, bend, relax, one last time, bend. Very good. Woo. Not too bad. So, because you're limited with the range of motion here, since we can't supinate our hand, which would be going from pronation to supination, that's external rotation, so that's what you're trying to do with the bar here. What gives is instead the elbow is going to rotate. Now what I want us to do is I want us to lock that in. So push that bar back out, lock in that external rotation here, and now let's go up. Bring that bar straight up over our head. Very good. As best you can, try to relax your stomach, try to relax your back, try to relax your head. What should happen is as you're externally rotating is your shoulder shouldn't be shrugging. If anything, your shoulder girdle should be depressing and retracting a little bit. This is the same concept as being in yoga and doing what they call downward dog, I believe. You relax, you can bring your PVC down. Your arms are on the floor, your feet are on the floor, and you reach back and through. The yoga instructor would typically tell you to draw your shoulder blades out around your ribs and down a little. Respectively speaking to you, not to the floor. So that draws that scapula down and back here. What's important is that we keep the shoulder girdle nice and open. So let's go back to the internal rotation bit here. So we're just going to push down real hard on the thigh. Get a ruckus going on there. And now I want you to lift this guy up. Now emphasize externally rotating. And you'll notice that the lats aren't even active anymore. You shouldn't really feel a lot of tension with that muscle that you were when you were squeezing down. If anything, that muscle should be experiencing some inhibition. It should be relaxing. And then relax. Woo. Not too bad. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to bring this PVC back up, and we're going to focus on some rotation and tilting. Now I want us to hollow a little bit. Keeping the elbows slightly forward. You don't have to push them far forward. Ideally, what we're looking for is a vertical forearm. So from here, the elbows are pointed down. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate towards the left, and then towards the right, and then back to the center. Now we're going to do 3 times to the left, and each time we go back, we're going to go a little bit further, okay? So you're going to pause for each one. So you're going to come back just a little bit, pause when you start to feel a little resistance. Relax. Still keep your core tight though. Now we're going to rotate back. Try to go a little bit further than you did the first time. Not too much, just a little bit further. Then we center back up. 3rd time, try to go as far as you can. Still keep those elbows forward if you can. Or a nice forward or a vertical forearm. And then we're going to square up. Put the PVC down, shake your arms out again if you need to. If at any point in time your fingers start to get a little numb, put it down and shake it out a little bit. And then make sure that you're not grabbing the bar too hard with your grip. All right, back up. We're going to do the same thing for the right side. Elbows are forward. We're hollowing slightly. And we're going to rotate just a little bit to the right. Not too much. The moment you start experiencing some resistance, you can pause. Then we're going to square back up. Again to the left. Sorry, to the right. Keep those elbows forward. Trying to push a little bit further than the first go ahead. Rotating back, forward. Last time, trying to go as far as you can, remember, keep those elbows forward and rotate to the right. Now again, make sure you're rotating and not leaning back. Just rotating, sitting nice and upright, hollowing a little bit, pushing those elbows forward, and relax. You feel that in there, right? So if this is not difficult for you to get right here, you can bring it back behind you if you want to. Biggest thing is that it shouldn't be on your neck. It's on the back part of the upper shoulder area right here. So it's kind of resting on that meaty part. You still want you to keep the forearms vertical. So it's the same thing as saying rotate those or push the elbows forward a little bit. Okay, they don't have to be like pointing forward like that, but straight up and down is nice. Okay, we're going to repeat the same thing we did here. We're going to add in a little bit more tilting. So if you want to, if the bar is not behind you, it's still just in front like we were doing beforehand. We're going to add a tilt. So we're going to rotate all the way towards the left. Push the elbows forward, hollow a little bit. Now tilt down to the left a little bit. Center back up. Rotate again to the left, tilt down. Center back up. Rotate, tilt. Center back up. Rotate, tilt, and then pause. Now push that left elbow forward a little bit more. It should force you to rotate left a little more. And then square up. You take a hand off, shake it out. It kind of creeps up on you. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I got pins and needles. Okay. We're rotating towards the right now. Rotate towards the right, and we're going to tilt. Square back up. Rotating to the right. Tilt. And when we're rotating, we want to kind of rotate as far as we did on the third repetition of the last set we're doing. So kind of going as far as you can, rotating to the right, then tilt down to the right. Forward. Rotate again. Down. Back up. Forward. Last time, rotate. Down, pause. Try to push that left elbow forward a little bit more, and that should force you to rotate just a tad more. And we're gonna rest. Woo. Shake those arms out just a little bit here. Woo. All right, so if you want the rest of what we have here, we're gonna do this standing. You can do the rest of what we have seated, and then we're gonna be retesting that upper body mobility here at the very end. But I did add some new, some other drills that we were gonna go over that I'd like for us to go over again today. I'm gonna grab another chair. You can. But what I want you to do, if you want to remain seated, is ideally you can roll yourself to a wall or just to a chair in front of you. You're going to use the legs on the chair, kind of post up against, or you can go up to a wall if you're standing. Or you can use your chair. So everybody, you can go ahead and put your PVC away for just a quick second. We're going to go back over some of the ankle and hip mobility drill here. So what we want us to do here is if you are against the wall or if you're seated, you're just going to kind of put the ball, the toe against the wall, and you're just going to push your knee forward. You're going to bend the knee, and you're just going to kind of push that guy forward. If you're seated or if you're against the wall. Now, if you trust your balance somewhat, you're going to place your foot, your whole foot, on top of the chair. Now, what's important is that the heel is on the chair. That's the more important part here. What you're going to do here is just the same thing as if you were posted up against the wall, or if you were seated, you're going to put your foot down and forward. And you're basically pushing the knee forward past, right over your toes. So not over the outside, not over the inside. Ideally, it's just going over the laces. And then we're going to come back, relax for a second, push forward again, come back, push forward, and now with the hand closest to the knee, or a hand that you don't feel like you're relying on, we're going to put a hand on the knee and we're going to do little circles here. Now what's important is that you're still keeping the heel down. So if you're seated, all you have to do is just kind of go left and right a little bit, okay? You just go into these little circles, clockwise, then counterclockwise, all of which you're really emphasizing pushing it forward a little bit more without the heel lifting up here. And we're going to come back. Last time, pushing forward. Now, while you're forward, if there's no pain or anything like that, you're going to take the hand that's closest to the leg, and I want you to push the knee out to the side a little bit. You'll have to compensate by putting a little bit more weight on the back leg, maybe a little bit. If you are seated, what I want you to do is one of two things. Everybody else can still hold and keep that knee pushed out to the side. If you're seated, what you can do here is you can lean forward a little bit and just push your hand on the outside of on the inside of the knee and push the knee out a little bit, but keep your heel and your big toe jammed into the ground. This position here, push that knee out. You should feel that in your hip, maybe a little bit inside the back, and we're going to come back. All right, we're going to do all that all over again, but just for the other side. So you're going to switch feet. This is actually a really good warm-up for doing cardio, and if you're going to be doing anything leg driven here. So we're going to push the foot forward, the knee forward. or keep your heel on the ground. Don't, or keep your heel flat on the surface. So if it's on top of the chair, don't let the heel lift up, keep the heel down. And then we come back, and we're coming forward, and back, and forward again. Remember, it's going over top of the laces. And then back. One last time. Forward, stay forward, and this time we're going to do those little circles. So just kind of grabbing your knee, emphasizing pushing it forward when you get to like 12 o'clock during that rotation, and switch directions. So you're just going from counterclockwise to clockwise, and we'll come back out. Woo. And then last one for the hip, come back in. Hand that's close to the leg, you put on the inside of that knee, and you're just going to push that knee out while you're pushed forward, keeping the heel down. You should feel this in the hip, maybe on the inner side of the hip. To help out with some hip clearance here. We always want the femur to externally rotate when the hip flexes. And we come back out. Woo. Kind of move the feet around a little bit if you need to. Ideally, you should feel a little less tension on the inside of the thigh, a little bit more on the inside of the hip. All right, breaking up some of that stiff tissue. We're going to grab our PVC again. Now again, you can do this standing if you want to. Okay. So we do have tables in here. For those of you at home, you'd want to use a surface that ideally has some kind of padding on it. The tables that we have in here don't really have any padding on it. But what we're gonna try to do here with some of the tables here, if anybody wants to volunteer to come into the camera, by all means, we'll share the table here. But for those of you at home, you can do this on a kitchen table, on a countertop. What we're going to do here is we're kind of basically going to break up some of that tension and that soft tissue with the lat here. There's two ways that we can do this. You can do this standing, or you can do this seated, in which case you can pull a seat up to a table, or you can just bend over at the table here. So one thing what we're going to do here is, again, as long as it doesn't bother your elbows, we're going to have our elbows on the table. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to have my hands underhand, my elbows are bent, my arms are vertical, so they're like forming a box right here. Does that make sense? What you're going to do here is basically you're going to arch your back like you were just doing a normal arch. And I'm going to push my shoulders down and kind of let my head kind of relax through a little bit. And you'll feel all of this light up. Does anybody want to join me in the table? I had promised it'd be limited TV exposure.
I can keep you in.
So as long as it doesn't hurt your elbows too much here, you want to get the back side of the elbows, and then you're just going to walk to this feet back a little bit. Let your head relax and arch that back. So remember, you're tightening up those back muscles, relaxing the stomach, and you'll feel those elbows kind of raise up past your head a little bit. Let your head relax through. You're just going to hold it. You should feel those muscles underneath your armpits, the back side of the upper arm, the shoulder, those lat muscles stretching out pretty good. You'll come back up. Woo. And were you able to get a good stretch with that one? All right, so I'm going to make one slight change here. You're going to have your hands out a little bit wider, and now you're going to externally rotate. So your forearm should make kind of like a V shape. You actually have to kind of work to keep your elbows in. But once you get them on the table, it will be a little bit easier. And instead of arching, you're going to hollow. This one's pretty rough. This one is going to really light up and stretch the lat. So so the biggest part is that your elbows are much closer together than your hands are. Once you get down, you can kind of come down a little bit here, but then I want you to hollow. Tighten your stomach muscles and round out your back. The moment you start rounding out your back, you're going to really feel those lat muscles really stretching. It's going to feel pretty tight, or pretty significant if you have tight lat muscles. Biggest thing is you want those elbows to be very, very close, very close. So if you have to maybe have your hands kind of moving a little bit on the PVC, that's okay, but you really want your elbows within at least half a foot or a foot of each other. And then from here, round out your back, like a cat is stretching. And bring those shoulders back a little bit and down a little. You should really feel those muscles that are running underneath the armpit there. On the back side of the upper part of the arm. And relax. Ooh. It's an awkward stretch, and it's pretty rough. But it's a great, remember, that lat muscle is a very powerful internal rotator. That's why, and it's a shoulder extensor. So we're doing the opposite of both of those. We're flexing the shoulder up and externally rotating. That's why it really stretches there. You get all that leverage by using the PVC right there to help stretch it out. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So you can grab your table. Hopefully you should feel a little pretty loose in the shoulders, and it's kind of a rough stretch. Yeah, it's kind of, and it'll definitely let you know how tight you are if you are really tight there, because it really isolates that big muscle. Okay, so now let's put our PVC back up. Push those elbows forward a little bit here. Hollow, squeezing those glutes, squeezing the abdomen. All right, now let's do what we were doing before. Kind of relax the stomach, relax the glutes, relax the backs. Just kind of let those elbows go forward and alternate. Going one or the other. There we go. Not too bad. Now, for consistency's sake, since we tested seated, we should retest seated as well for reliability. Alright, so hopefully we're not feeling tight or anything like that. We should have some supportive tension in our shoulder girdle here. So we're starting off with the overhand grip. Okay. Now from here, I'm not emphasizing externally rotating my arms. I'm not trying to internally rotate. I'm just grabbing the pipe and keeping my arms straight. It's going to bring that guy up over my head. Now again, try to take a little bit notice here if you're compensating anywhere. Is it easier for your head to relax? Do you feel like that range of motion's improved? Or if it hasn't improved, does there feel like there's a little less resistance in that position?
Does it look like it's improved?
Right? I haven't been looking at everybody here, but that's more so up for you to do. For me, it's a lot easier for my right arm to get up in position to match my left arm. And I'm feeling a lot less resistance too, a lot less residual tension. This posture right here is the exact opposite of what this does. Slouching over all that right here, that all gets really tight, and trying to break up that tension and that soft tissue is really important. All right, here comes the big one. We're going to supinate our grip here. Now, ideally, you would do this test seated in a, what's it called? Where you cross your legs. You're just seating on the floor. Kind of like that. What's it called?
Cross your legs.
Just cross your legs, sitting on the floor. And you would do this with your back up against the wall and your butt up against the wall. And ideally, the clearance test is with your hands over, you'd be able to touch the wall with the back of the palms of your hands. And even further, same thing with an underhand. It gets a little bit more difficult with an underhand. But for this sake here and just for class, we're just going to do it seated with no wall. But if you want to do this on your own, you can definitely do that. All right. Now, arms are straight. Coming up. Try to keep your pinky on. Remember to kind of let your head relax a little bit. You're not necessarily trying to get the PVC over top of your head. You're trying to just stack it over top of your shoulder. At least that's just the direction it's headed. Again, try to take notice here if there's anything trying to compensate. Are you having to arch your back to get up here? Is how much, how much tension do you feel like you're fighting? Is there a lot of resistance? This position, has the range of motion improved at all? Do you feel like you can keep your arms externally rotated better? Basically, that's saying, like, are you able to keep more of the majority of your fingers on here as compared to the first time? And relax. Hopefully that should be a little bit smoother than it was the first time. Those are two really good tests that sports therapists and sports doctors will use to kind of assess shoulder mobility, and it's something that a lot of PTs like to use. It's simple. And what is this? It's basically nothing here. You just need to use a wall. So it's a pretty easy test right there. This is also, in my opinion, a good thing to do on a weekly basis, just to kind of get a good idea of like your habits, your daily habits, what if they're affecting your upper body posture. More importantly, your mobility in your shoulder girdle. All right, so whether you're seated or if you want, you can stand me. Everybody can toss the PVC. We're going to start standing. We're going to go through some two long hollow to arch positions here. All right, so we're going to have our feet shoulder width apart. Oh, my shoulders feel pretty good now. See, the key is doing things like that on a daily basis, meaning making the time to do it on a daily basis. But God, you feel so good once you do it right afterwards. All right, hands are in front. We're just gonna slide those hands down, and you wanna think about contracting the abdomen, pulling the ribs down. Remember, I'm not leaning forward. My back is just rounding. My hands are sliding down towards the knees, squeezing my glutes a little bit here. You should still keep all points of the feet in contact with the ground, your heels, the outer part of your foot, big toes jammed down, all your foot secured. Once you feel like that back is pretty well rounded, now we're gonna put a little pressure through the palms of our hands, not a lot, just a little. Now we're gonna slowly start to come up, thinking about like one vertebrae at a time, starting with your lumbar, working through your thoracic vertebrae, up to your cervical spine. And once your shoulders start to lift up pretty high, I want you to squeeze through the palm of your hands to the top of your thigh a little bit harder, a little bit more. You should feel the shoulders draw back and down. Squeezing your glutes, still squeezing the abdomen. Once you're fully standing here, now I want you to slowly let go of your glutes, slowly let go of the stomach, push in really hard, let that chest rise up, and arch that back a little bit here. So I was kind of going from here to here, and while visually that might seem like a very subtle movement, you can feel the difference with the tension in your body. And now we're going to fully extend our arms back past our pockets. Chest should really be arched, shoulders are definitely drawn back and down. We're really just trying to extend those shoulders back. And we're going to relax. We're going to do that one more time, okay? All right, shake it out a little bit if you need to. Hands are on top. We're going to reach down, contracting the stomach muscles, trying to pull that sternum down. We're sliding those hands towards the knees, squeezing the glutes a little. And once you feel like that back is nice and rounded out, we're slowly, one vertebrae at a time, starting to come up. And the further you come up, the harder I want you to start to push with the palms of your hands onto the front of your thigh. But this time, keep your glutes and stomach contracted. Once you reach the full top, the shoulders are drawn back and down. I'm pushing through the palms of my hands pretty hard, still breathing. Letting my head relax though. Making sure I'm balanced throughout my feet. And we're gonna let go in 3, 2, 1. Letting go of all that tension, standing up nice and tall. Deep breath. Good job, everybody, with that. Very good. Thank you again for joining.
Thank you.
I will see y'all next week. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.